Okay, let's get right into it. Something pretty huge has just come down from India's Supreme Court. And honestly, it's a real game changer for how the creamy layer in the OBC reservation system is figured out. And we're not talking about some tiny little adjustment here. This is a massive shift that's going to affect thousands of people trying to get government jobs.
You see, for years, there was this pretty controversial government rule in place that the Supreme Court itself has now called hostile discrimination. So what was so wrong with it, and how did the court just step in and make things right? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down right now.
All right, so let's start with the verdict itself, because honestly, the exact words the court chose to use, well, they tell you everything you need to know about how important this decision really is.
I mean, listen to that phrasing. It's incredibly powerful. The court didn't just say the rule was a mistake. They called it constitutionally impermissible. They're basically saying that the whole point of the creamy layer is to help those who need it most, not to create these bizarre, unfair walls between people who are in the exact same boat.
Now, to really get why this ruling is such a big deal, we've got to make sure we're all on the same page about what this creamy layer thing even is. So, let's do a super quick recap.
So here's the bottom line. Think of the creamy layer as a kind of filter. It's a system designed to make sure that the benefits of reservation, in college admissions and government jobs, actually get to the members of OBC communities who are most in need by filtering out those who are already doing pretty well for themselves.
And this idea, it's got a bit of a history. It all kicked off with that famous Mandal verdict back in '92. The first rules in '93 were super clear. Your parents' salary and any money from farming did not count towards the income limit. But then, this government letter in 2004 showed up and just muddled everything, creating this conflict that didn't really blow up until they started enforcing it hard around 2015. And that whole mess is what led us to today's verdict, which basically throws that 2004 rule out the window.
So what was this whole conflict about? What was this unfair distinction that ended up in a massive Supreme Court showdown?
It all boils down to one single government clarification from 2004. Believe it or not, this one letter created two totally different sets of rules for people, and the only difference was where their parents happened to work. This was the real heart of the problem.
Okay, check this out. Here's how it actually played out. If your parent worked for the government, their salary was not counted when calculating the creamy layer income. But if your parent worked for a PSU, that's a public sector undertaking, or just a regular private company, their salary was counted. This created this totally absurd situation where two families could have the exact same income but be treated completely differently. One kid could get reservation while the other was just kicked out of the running.
So how did the Supreme Court deal with this? Well, they looked at that glaringly unfair distinction and handed down a verdict that was crystal clear.
Yeah, the court did not mince words here. They flat out called the system hostile discrimination. They ruled that treating people who are in the same situation so unequally is a direct violation of the fundamental right to equality that's guaranteed in the Indian Constitution. The message couldn't be clearer. You can't have one rule for one group and a totally different, tougher rule for another. It's just not right.
Now, this is a point that often gets people confused, so it's really worth pointing this out. Both the OBC creamy layer and the EWS, or economically weaker sections quota, have that same 8 lakh rupee income limit. But, and this is the key, how you calculate that number is totally different. For OBCs, salary and farm income are out. For EWS, income from all sources is in. This new ruling just reaffirms that original clear distinction for the OBC category.
All right, so we've talked about the legal side of things, but what does this actually mean for real people on the ground? Who is actually going to benefit from this major decision?
Well, the impact is pretty immediate, and it's really widespread. I mean, of course, it affects all the candidates applying for jobs in the future, but it also reaches back in time to help people who are already in the system. We're talking about officers who might now get promotions or better postings, and even some people who were flat out rejected might now finally get the job they were unfairly denied.
And hey, this isn't just me guessing. Listen to what one of the actual petitioners in the case, Rohit Nathanratnu, had to say. He explains it perfectly. For a lot of people, this ruling is going to mean a direct, positive, real-world change in their career, whether that's a higher rank, a better posting, or even getting a job they thought they had lost for good.
And here's the real kicker. To make sure this isn't just some empty legal promise, the court gave a very powerful order. It told the government that it has to create extra jobs, they're called supernumerary posts, if that's what it takes to make sure every single person who is now eligible gets the position they rightfully deserve.
So there you have it. The Supreme Court has fixed a major imbalance and restored a level playing field for literally thousands of people.
It's a huge step forward for fairness. But it also kind of leaves us with a bigger question to chew on, right? Now that this one rule is fixed, what are the next challenges we need to tackle to make sure the entire reservation system is as fair and equitable as it was always meant to be?